One of the questions people ask me the most about their trip coming to Japan is where to exchange money. How do they get the best rates? Is it from an ATM? Is it from a bank? Is it at the airport? Is it at the train station? Is it inside of the city of Tokyo? Or should they use their credit cards as well? So there's a lot of questions, and I thought that this live stream would help answer those questions because I keep answering them on Instagram and Facebook and all these other platforms, so this might be the best way to do that. I'm also going to be doing a call-in here, so those that are watching will be able to ask questions live. We've got a call-in on Discord. The link is in the description, takes you right into the... maybe that link is wrong, but if you go into the live chat, our moderators will be giving the link so that you'll be able to join us in here and discuss this, because I think it's a pretty important topic for a lot of people, how to get the best rate. And I live here. I'm not exactly sure 100% either, so I've been learning a lot from the people on the Discord server and the chats from yesterday's live stream about the exchange rate. Right now, it is 154 yen to the dollar, which is crazy. 154, 155. That is, I've never seen levels like this before. In October 2022, we had about 151 to the dollar, which is mind-blowing at the time. Not so much to those that came here in the 1980s, but or the 70s for that matter. But it's quite amazing to me, and I think everybody wants to get the best rates possible. I was looking, I want to start off by going over some of these things. So I'm going to mute the community chat. We have about 26 people right now in the audience on Discord. I want to go over this really quickly and show you some of the options that you have. This is from JNTO. This is the Japan National Tourism Organization. This is maybe the most definitive site for travel to Japan. This is the government site. They usually do a very good job researching this to make sure that you have all the assets. They actually have offices in the United States and in Europe, and I believe in Australia and other places, where you could call them and ask them. I mean, it's literally, I've never done it, but I've heard that you can call them and ask them questions about your trip to Japan. So that's also another place that's a free resource funded by the Japanese government. So I'm going to go over this. They have now a lot of information. The link to this is also in the description of this video, and it tells you the best places to change the money according to them. There are places to change, but you know, I think everybody knows that maybe the best places are the ATMs. This is because you're not dealing with any people. You're not dealing with an organization that has to pay rent or office space for this. It's very electronic. It's all managed inside of that machine. And the first place to get money back in the day, now I came here in 98, the only place you could change money was at the bank or at airports where there were some windows, but there was a lot of bureaucratic procedures. It was really hard to change money in Japan back 25 years ago. Now it's gotten so much easier, and ATMs still kind of a recent phenomenon. I think they started to take foreign cards at the post office around 2014, a couple years after I started YouTube, because I remember there was a tourist explosion and they needed to get money in order to pay for the things that they needed. Japan wasn't fully on credit cards. It was still a very much cash culture, and it's still always going to be like that compared to other countries maybe, but the tide is changing on this. So you still don't need cash, and I'll explain why in a minute. But Japan Post was the first place. These are the post offices. Japan Post is one of the biggest banks in the world. It's one of the biggest banks in Japan. Of course, all the post office, and there are thousands of them, have ATMs inside of them. Having a postal bank account is also quite useful if you live in Japan too, because there's so many of them. They take just about every card, including American Express, Discover Card, JCB. They're on the Cirrus and the Plus networks. They take even Union Pay, which I think is the Chinese credit union, which some foreigners might be on too. If you're traveling a lot to Japan, to China, you probably have Union Pay. So it's pretty convenient. There's some pluses and minuses to the post office, including the hours that they keep. Post office is typically closed. The ATM is open until evening, I believe. Wasn't always like that, but that was one place where you can take your ATM card and try to get money out. The next place that everybody has been sharing, I think, and this is kind of a recent thing, this is 7-Eleven started to take foreign cards maybe about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. They take the same kinds of cards, but they also take Diners Club, which is kind of neat here. American Express, Discover Card, you can pan up there in the link in the description. But 7-Eleven banks, of course, they're 24 hours a day. They're very convenient. You can walk in and get your cash. The rates are relatively low. Same with the Japan Post. I think they take about 100 yen as a bank fee, which is really low. And I think 7-Eleven, depending on the time that you do it, if it's peak time, or when the banks are open, or if it's on the ends when the banks are closed, they might take between 100 to 280 or 300 yen or something. But, you know, everybody's going to take a chunk out of it, and I'll explain why that maybe the banks are the best. Now, the banks, which are not convenience stores or the post office, Mizuho Bank is listed here. You can see they don't take American Express, Diners Club. They do take the Discover Card and JCB. I don't know what foreigners have Japan Credit Bureau credit cards, but you can see that the options become more limited as you go to the banks. But they're increasing. Mizuho is just one of maybe 4 or 5 really large nationwide banks. Mitsubishi UFJ Bank is one that I use quite a bit. They take about the same as Mizuho, and so I think it's pretty constant. And it says here Mitsui Sumitomo takes even less cards here. These ATMs, mostly for domestic Japanese, are in there. ATMs in Japan are pretty cool. They actually take coins and will dispense coins from an ATM machine, and you can deposit coins in an ATM machine, which is really cool. There's a lot of things that you can do with Japanese ATMs that you can't do with international ATMs. I thought that was kind of mind-blowing when I came to Japan. Like, and they've been able to do this for 25 years, to take coins, and you can get like 500, and you can get what, like an uneven number and have that dispensed to you. I only need 1,423 yen. Some of the machines were able to dispense 1,423 yen. Very cool. So ATM machines, and it's getting easier to get access to cash, basically. And the reason why, I think everybody sees that the Japanese population is decreasing. It makes a lot of sense to have foreigners that are here use those transaction costs with their bank, and they can get millions and millions of dollars that way. The costs from ATMs are always going to be less than the exchange booths at the at the airports and train stations and around the city. But you're going to have to ask your bank, and this is something that every traveler should do before you travel. Make sure that your credit card is set up for travel. There's sometimes where you'll make international withdrawals on your credit card or your debit card, and the bank will block it because it looks like suspicious activity. It's always a good idea to go into your bank and just tell them that you're going to be traveling abroad, and make sure that's in their system so they know your card has not been stolen, or you can get access to the bank. And also, make sure you check the limit of the amount of money that you can take from the wall. Sometimes it's as low as 20 or 30,000 yen, which is about $200 US. That might not be enough to cover some of the things that you need it for. That's per day. So some banks will allow you to raise the limit. It's based on your bank, not the machine that you're using it at. And so you're going to want to check these things before you leave and decide that ATM is the way that you want to go. So that's probably the biggest con to using ATMs. For currency exchange, but we're going to discuss with people that are calling in about this more in detail. There are other places like Narita Airport, Haneda Airport, Nagoya, and Kansai. The thing is, though, when you go to these exchange booths, and let me talk a little bit about them, they will take sometimes a rate that is less favorable. And all right, let me put it like this. I was at Shinjuku about 4 days ago on a live stream, 4 or 5 days ago, walking around Kabukicho. You might want to check that out. It's a pretty good live stream. And we walked past a foreign exchange booth that was near the Uniqlo on the east side of Shinjuku Station. And the rate looked, they didn't take any commission, but the rate was not good. It was 147 to the dollar, but the rate at the time was 151, I believe, or 152. So they took 5 yen per dollar out of it. So if you're changing like $1,000, that's what, 50? That's a kind of a chunk of change. That's hard to avoid. Now, if they were to take like a $20 fee plus a bad rate, then you probably should be taking the money from the ATM if you can, as much as possible. But it's almost unavoidable sometimes that you have to use these money changers, because they usually are there when you're in a pinch. You have couple $100 that you need to change right now. You can't use the ATM, or maybe you don't have access to it. You don't have a credit card or a debit card to be able to do that. These exchange places, they're there to make money, but they also want to build a reputation, because in Japan, reputation is quite important of doing good business. and in the eyes of Japanese as well, because you don't want to be on the news here and damage your reputation as a CEO that's conning people. But there are people that do that here in Japan. Just keep that in mind. There are as honest as you think Japan is, there are dishonest people here. There are a lot of dishonest people here. Some of them might be foreigners, and the majority of them are probably Japanese that have been scamming people for a very long time, grannies out of money, calling them up and saying, you're like, that stuff happens here. I want you to know that, despite how honest you think it is based on social medias that you've seen. I watch the Japanese news all the time. I know that this stuff happens quite a bit, actually. So the foreign exchange booths, make sure it's a reputable place. I think you can tell if it's a reputable place. Do your homework in advance. Watching this is a good start, but make sure there's some booths that are listed on Google Maps. You can check out, Google Maps is something that you should be using anyways. You can check out the reviews on Google Maps, and if a place is dishonest, you can figure this out really quickly. This is from JNTO. It'll tell you all the networks that are available, and the link to this is in the description. I went yesterday to Tokyo Station, and I checked out some of the foreign currency booths that you would get if you're taking the Shinkansen. This is the exit on the Yaesu side of Tokyo Station. Yeah, and I spent about 40 seconds just panning around, and I saw that there was an exchange vending machine. Check this out. These are the lockers here, and it's very easy to see with these arrows and signs pointing right to this foreign exchange vending machine. And I said, well, gosh, I guess let's go check this out and see what this looks like here. Yeah, the rates, I'm going to pause it right here. The rates are not good. At this time when I filmed it, it was 154 to the dollar, and they're giving you 139 to the dollar. That means for every dollar changed, they're taking like 14 yen from you per dollar. This is a kind of a machine that you would use if you're in a pinch. You have no other choice and you need money for those lockers right by there, or you need money for, to eat lunch. Taking 14 yen per dollar for $10, that's not that bad. You have to think about this in terms of, of your time. Going around looking for a bank. If you were to use a Japanese bank, I want to tell you right now, you're going to sit in there for like 30 to 45 minutes changing money. That's not worth it for lunch. The convenience of this is sometimes worth it for you if you want to go to the McDonald's that's just down the road from here and you want to get lunch or something. You're going to need cash to do that. Well, they might take credit cards too. But apparently you have to sign up with a QR code. And there's like, I don't know, it seems a little complicated to me. I just want to put my money in there and get the cash out. But maybe they need your passport, and they need some information to prevent crime or something like this. So it uses, I don't know, it looked really, I don't know, probably not something that I would do. But that gives you an idea of what that machine looks like and whether or not this is something that you would want to do. The exchange rate's bad. You wouldn't go you wouldn't go and exchange $1,000 at this machine, basically. You would do it because you're hungry, you needed to get something for lunch, or you needed cash right now for a business that didn't take credit cards. The best thing to do for everybody is to use your credit cards or debit cards in Japan, because you're always going to get a favorable rate on the charges you do, unless there's an international fee. But even then, looking at what the exchange rates are, probably not a bad idea. Again, make sure you consult your bank before you go on a trip. At the end of the Yaesu, there's a very famous McDonald's. Look at it, they have matcha shakes and what is that? Like Anko red bean milkshake or something. It's kind of neat right now. But this McDonald's, right across from it, there are ATMs there that accept most foreign cards. There's the Tokyo Mitsubishi UFJ, and there's the post office, JP, right there. And these take foreign cards. I walked in there and I saw some foreign visitors also taking cash out for that. So it's at a convenient place inside of Tokyo Station. So you get access to the ATMs just about everywhere. You don't have there's not a lot of problems with it. I took pictures of the front screen of the ATM, so I want to take a look at this here while we can. So this is the 7-Eleven vending machine right here. So I found this one right next to the foreign exchange. On the other side of those vending machines is that foreign exchange vending machine. And then this was like kind of hidden behind those poles at the exit. This is the 7-Eleven ATM. And 7 Bank is the one that I showed you a little bit earlier. This is the one that they take foreign cards, and I didn't want to, record it. It seemed kind of dodgy to do that, so I just took pictures of the screenshots here, screenshots of the menus. If you change it to English, which you can on these ATM machines, it shows you some of the hours. It shows you that the hours that the services are available. So I think that American Express has 15 minutes where it's not available. Like that was kind of weird. So in the middle of the night, apparently they reset these for overseas cards or something. You're allowed to withdraw. The maximum is 100,000 yen for the chips, I think. And the limit for magnetic strip card transactions is 30,000 yen. So I think you could use it, like just take 30,000 yen at a time if your bank allows you to do that. But it says here, the limit for each withdrawal is 100,000 yen. So that's the most you could take from the machine. So this might be kind of helpful here. And you could select your language. Let me see here. I think I have the next menu. This is a close-up of those hours here. I just took some random shots. They even have a FAQ, like in case you can't get your card to work. So that's impressive because we didn't have this so many years ago. It's still kind of interesting for me to see. There's the 100,000 yen limit on the cards there. It's very interesting for me to see that Japan is a lot more open to cash. Do you even need cash? I would say you probably do. There are some, if you're going to small hotels, business-run places, some of them don't have take credit cards because credit cards will take 5% off of the fee. So instead of passing that on to you, they would just prefer to have the cash and not have to deal with the credit card companies. Maybe that's also a domestic issue. Japanese tourists maybe want to save a little bit of money. Paying by credit card always adds like 5% to the bill. So we're all in agreement to use credit cards to pay 5% more based on our desire for convenience. And even supermarkets, all the places sort of add that price in. Some hotels, local places, local izakayas, restaurants might not take cash. There are some street food places that only take cash. There are places that, food trucks, for example, are taking more and more PayPay, which is this digital currency, sort of like, I don't know what you have in the States or your other countries, but a QR code where you have digital payments through that. That's a system in Japan called PayPay. It's now endorsed by the Japanese government, which is pretty cool. Kanai made me sign up for one, I think. I never use it, but it's there. Apparently they gave me free money to get linked into their system or something. I don't know. But this digital money is starting to grow in Japan, but still cash is something that you're going to want to have if you're going out to the countryside in particular, or just have on your persons in case you just need it for something. You never know. Sometimes vending machines don't take the Suica card. You'll have to pay for vending machines with cash sometimes. There's times when you're going to need that. Gachapon. I haven't seen a gachapon that takes digital money yet. All right, I'm going to take some of your questions here and discuss some of the pros and cons as well as hear your experiences. Peso is in the house. How are you today, sir?
Doing good. How about you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm looking forward to the challenge of these questions. If we have anybody who wants to raise their hand, Brandy, you're traveling. Brandy's here. You're traveling in Japan right now on vacation. What are you doing watching live streams? You should be out there eating and having fun. But she's here.
We do have a couple of people speaking to us on the fireside chat, just submitting text questions.
Oh, I see that.
And for those who aren't in Discord already, I would advise you join. You can speak to John directly or send questions via the text chat as well. First one is from Sharon Toki, who just wants to remark that they used one of those international debit cards, which can store multiple currencies.
Right.
As in you can buy and store Japanese yen and use that in Japan for mostly all of their purchases. Hardly or minimal use of any cash notes from their experience.
Wow. So what we're hearing is that you don't really need to use cash so much, so you don't need to lean on it. One note, traveler's checks, just don't do it if you're coming to Japan. Very few places accept them anymore. There's no checking system in Japan It's never had a checking system where you sign your name. It's like ripe with fraud anyways. Japan has never adopted that. So don't come with traveler's checks here and thinking that this might be useful. It's not. It's interesting though that an international debit card, I guess this would work. Setting up an account with your bank where you have a set amount of money that you can use to take out is a really smart idea. In particular, at machines that take different kinds of systems, like the Plus system and the Cirrus system. Sometimes having an American Express and a MasterCard and a Visa is very helpful too, because there are places that, like Costco only accepts MasterCard right now. Some years they only accepted Visa. I don't know how Costco works, but you can't use anything except for MasterCard. So there are some places in Japan that are like that. That's good advice. What does Yummy say here, Peso?
Yeah. The other question asked by Yummy is that how does the performance of the Japanese economy affect the exchange rate of the Japanese yen?
That's a complicated question to answer. I kind of talked about this yesterday. The exchange rate is set, and one thing that I agreed with a lot of the viewers from yesterday was that it's more about, not about the yen being weak right now, it's more about the dollar just being stronger. There's a lot of currencies in the West that aren't as strong right now as the US dollar. So basically, Americans that are coming here are going to be able to live a lot larger, a little bit, well, yes, they're going to be able to afford more things than other countries just based on the strength of the dollar. I don't know how long this is last. None of these things go in a straight line, ever. All right, we hit about 152 to the yen to the dollar, and then it went down to 135, and then it goes back up, and then it comes back down. So I can only imagine that the Japanese yen will eventually either strengthen or the US dollar will weaken. And these are the two things that control the currency exchange. Right now, Japan is raising interest rates. For a very long time, they've had negative interest rates, meaning if you were to buy a house and you were getting a mortgage, you were getting like a 0% mortgage, because having 0% is better than losing money, which was a negative percent. So, I mean, Japan's starting to raise that now, which is good if you want to save money. But for the longest time, the Japanese Bank of Japan didn't want people to save money, because Japanese were still, despite a negative interest rate, people were still saving money in Japan, because that's just the way Japanese are. You put it in the bank, not realizing that you're actually losing money. You're not making money off of this. So they wanted you to invest in the stock market, buy things, be a consumer. That's really hard to do, in particular with Japan's senior citizens. They said there was something in the news about 15 years ago, I remember. It said if 1% of the Japanese senior citizens were to spend, if Japanese citizens were to spend 1% of their savings as consumers, the economy would be booming. But they just don't do that. They live more frugally because of, post-World War II and all this. And now the population is starting to decrease quite rapidly. So there's a lot of worries. There's a lot of private debt, and there's a lot of social service debt here, like healthcare and things like this, because there aren't enough young people to pay into the system. So all these things do play a big part into Japan's exchange rate. But for the most part, it's just that the dollar is stronger than the yen, and people are speculating it up and down. Again, there's so many things in play with this, but interest rates has a big part in this right now. Thanks for the question. And I'm sure people are going to be chatting in the comments after in the playback, which is always good to look at. We got somebody in here to call in, Peso? Nobody's raising their hand. What?
Yeah, no one's raising their hand. Feel free to request to speak, and oh, there we go. Never mind, we have one person right here.
All right, bring him on.
Sign KT, yeah. There we are.
All right. The question I was going to ask was, would the 150,000 K yen I have left over from my last trip plus $4,000 be enough to carry me over for this current trip? I would be there for about a month.
So you have about, $4,000 or 150,000 yen? I didn't catch that.
I have 150,000 yen left over from my last trip.
Okay.
And I'm also bringing 4,000 US dollars. Will that be enough to carry me over for a month with the inflation?
Right. So when you ask a question like that, I don't know much about how you live. Are you somebody who goes to capsule hotels and eats at convenience stores? Or are you somebody who will stay at, like the Intercontinental and eat wagyu and sushi every night. So that's a big
I
deal,
just
right?
think arts hotel, eating convenience store food, that sort of thing.
That's then
Going to
you're
common kitchen.
fine. You're more than fine. With $4,000 and the exchange rate as it is right now, you're gonna be wow. That's like what would that be like? That's like like 800,000 yen maybe 700,000 yen about for a month. That's incredible. You're going to be able to do a lot with that if you were to come right now. I don't know. I'm not sure what it's going to be like in a couple of months, but you should be able to.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, you should be able to upgrade your like the exchange rate allows you to do things like maybe upgrade your hotel, maybe upgrade the kind of food that you wanted to eat, maybe eat out a little bit more, maybe be able to afford to ride the Shinkansen if you're going to do a local train, stuff like this, because or you just save money and save it for the next trip and not spend as much. But having an exchange rate that's so favorable for you allows you to do things that you maybe not have done, or stay in a really nice hotel, or stay a second night at a ryokan, which can be maybe the priciest thing that you do. They usually start around 14,000 yen a night, but they have breakfast and dinner included, which is kaiseki ryori. Usually you're in a beautiful tatami room with an onsen bath. It's the most traditional thing you could do is to stay in a Japanese ryokan. If you just stay there for one night, if you have two people, it can get a little pricey. Maybe it's like 300 bucks a night for two people because they charge per person, not by the room. But if you have a favorable exchange rate, it allows you to spend maybe another day, which I always love to do because then you challenge the chef because they have to cook you something different that second night. They don't want to give you the same thing. So the chef has to think outside the box. Most people spend just one night at a ryokan. You spend two or three, then the chef gets really creative, and I like that. It's kind of like a challenge for them. I know because I've been in the kitchen, and you can see the majority of the meals on the left are like for the first night, and then the second night there's maybe 10%, and then the third night there's maybe 5%, and you can see that the sets get different but smaller when they're on the plate for the servers to bring out to set up the table. So I thought that was super interesting. Thanks for. Do you have a follow up on that?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. I mean, just I guess yeah, we do have another person coming in. Yeah. There you go.
All right, Red Cloud,
Hi,
welcome.
Red Cloud.
Hi, John. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, this is Back in the Clay, but I'm using this account for Discord. Anyway, I had an opportunity to spend 3 months, this last 3 months in Japan, but I missed the sakura or the hanami.
Yeah.
But I tried living kind of as a local to a certain degree. For 2 of the months, I lived in an apartment, which was very, very reasonable for American standards, out in Yokohama for $800 a month. So that saved me a lot of money. I was at a business hotel in Kyoto for about $1,000 for the whole month. So definitely, really, I definitely did live frugally to on that regard, as well as the airfare was like 800 round trip on ANA, taking the the red eye.
Yeah.
And I was able to spend a bunch of money because the exchange rate was around 148 at that time. So I'd already brought my money in. Most of my money I brought in, and the rest I used for credit cards. I didn't use all the money I brought because I used my, there was again more credit card use available for a lot of the places, even the smaller places. I for the convenience, I used my Discover card.
Wow.
Discover has no foreign transaction fee, and most of all the convenience, accept the Discover card. I didn't bring MasterCard this time because the last trip, MasterCard was not accepted at a lot of places, so I didn't. I didn't bring it this time.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm glad that that's something to look into. I know. I grew up in the 80s, so I remember when there was no Discover card, and then one time I think it was Sears Roebuck or something that started the Discover card, and now it's really gaining steam because of the benefits that you can get, especially for travel. That's really good to hear. So those that have Discover cards don't have those same foreign transaction fees. I'm sure American Express probably puts on a lot of fees. I don't know,
Right.
but
the other two main cards I use for Visa with no foreign transaction fees are Amazon. The Amazon card, the Amazon, the Amazon card, as well as my Costco. My Costco credit card has no foreign exchange fee.
Interesting. That's good to know.
But you get points for Costco. You know, you get dividends. You know, with
Oh,
using
wow.
Costco. I don't know if you do it in Japan, but in the U.S. we have dividends. Every year they give you these dividends.
Interesting. So it might be worth getting it because I know that Costco only takes MasterCard in Japan right now. So
Oh,
I,
but okay, but on the back of my Costco Visa card is my membership card. So that I remember one time I went to Hiroshima and they let me in using my credit card. They saw the back, so I was allowed to. I didn't have time because I was on a crunch. I had the Shinkansen to catch, but I walked. I didn't. It's so far from the station. I didn't realize how far Costco is past the Hiroshima Zoom Zoom Stadium, you know, the baseball
oh
stadium,
yeah, you go
and
past it
it
on the
took me so long
Shinkansen.
to walk there.
You go
Huh?
past it on the Shinkansen.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I knew it was there. So then I got off. I was like, let me go visit. I got a couple hours before my when before it was so long to walk there from the station before I left.
Yeah, it looks a lot shorter, I guess, because the Shinkansen's going by so fast, maybe.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I know. Yeah, so I was like, oh, it looks like it's easy to get there.
right, I was shocked though. I lived in Hiroshima back 20 some years ago. There was, if
Yeah.
Costco was there, Hiroshima would have become the greatest place to live in the
Oh,
entire
it
world.
would
I
have.
love living there.
I lived there for a month back in '96 when I was living at my girlfriend's because I was looking for a Aikawa job. She was working for like Nova or something like that.
Right.
I tried to get a job to like be with my girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? You know, it would have been different if I was if But my dad passed away, had to come back to the U.S. and the rest is history.
Yeah, Hiroshima is a wonderful. It's about the same time that I was living there, a little bit longer. But anybody, I get this question a lot. Does Hiroshima hate Americans? The answer is absolutely not. It's not even an
No,
issue.
no.
It's not even an issue, with people there. And I loved my time in Hiroshima. I'd say the most livable city for me in all of Japan, and I've lived in 16 different cities over the last 25, 26 years now. Hiroshima comes out as number one. The weather's better. It's on the inland sea. It's so much
Right.
sunshine. The food is good. It's like they've got everything in that one area, just around
Yeah.
Hondori, right?
Yeah, I know. We kind of lived just a couple stops away from Sogo department store. I
Right,
spent a lot of my time over there.
right. They had everything set up there because the Marine base in Iwakuni was there. There were a lot of things in English at the time. They were set up more, not because of the tourists, but because of the military bases around there. Set up more. There were more foreign-owned businesses in Hiroshima as well, which I thought was interesting. This is
Yeah.
20 some years ago. Did you go to Sam's Bar by any chance
Sam's. I
in
went to
Hiroshima?
some. I don't remember Sam's Bar because my girl. I was going with my girl because I was kind of too scared to like get. I was my first time out of the country,
Ah,
so I was kind of like a little bit kind of skittish going out by myself. But I did explore after a while. I did because my girlfriend was going. She had to go to work, so I had to basically go on my own. Discovering on my own, kind of stuff. But I did find some places to eat. But I had no job at that time, so
yeah.
didn't matter how good the exchange rate was. I did take pictures, but that time it was only film pictures. So film processing and films was very expensive compared to the U.S. And we got
Yes.
these tiny little photographs back. I was like, after that, you know, I didn't develop most of my pictures there because it was so pricey.
Pricey and small, right? I remember those small
Yeah, yeah. It was like
photos.
what it was, we had the big ones and the extra, from Thrifties. But it was like, why am I? I was kind of like, I'm getting jibbed.
Right. They didn't have like 4x6s. It was a size that was a little bit smaller than that, so it's sort of a
Yeah, the original,
disappointment.
the old school ones. That's what they
Yeah.
had, and I was like, I'm getting jibbed.
Yeah, I remember those days. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for calling in, Clayton,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Well, I
Thank you
think,
very much.
yeah, you're welcome. Johnny writes in here, Clayton's voice is so recognizable. I know. That was fun. Thanks for calling in, Clayton, and sharing your experience down in Hiroshima as well. Some really great questions here. Chan is calling from the trunk of his car.
G'day.
Chan, how's the weather?
Dark in the trunk. I'm just wondering with the digital nomad visa and the exchange rate being so favorable for foreigners. I wonder how that would affect immigration, or not immigration, but temporary movement of foreigners into Japan, and how that would affect.
The digital nomad visa, I think it's connected to a certain amount of money that you make per year, which is something like 1 million yen or $100,000. But because of the exchange rate is so favorable for Americans in particular, it's of course going to be less than that. I'm not even sure how it runs. I think that they've announced it and they put it into effect, right? I remember when I announced this a couple of months ago, the digital nomad visa, it was still just in the debate stage that they said they were going to do, but I believe it is out now, right?
I don't know.
Right. Not sure.
But I just remember hearing about it coming out in April, and with the exchange rate the way it is, I'd imagine a lot of people would want to come over because of the. I mean, I know from Australia, the cost of living in Australia is quite high compared even to Tokyo.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if there's going to be an influx of gaijin going to Japan to live, bringing money in, and then hopefully that would positively impact Japan.
Right. In particular, Sydney, right? I know Sydney's like off the charts right now.
Yeah, everyone's moved from Sydney to Melbourne, and Melbourne's now got the highest population in Australia.
I bet.
Keeping it on topic a bit about the money, honestly I'm a bit pessimistic about digital nomads, specifically digital nomads benefiting the economy, particularly the taxation system, considering that if you're not paid in Japanese bank accounts, if your job remains with a foreign company, your tax liabilities are near zero. So you're not like compelled to pay income tax or even the hometown tax if you're working for a foreign company.
But you do need to live, so accommodation.
Food. So there's still GST, consumption tax, and all that, but you're missing like the major income tax component.
That's something to definitely consider. Yeah, with the digital nomad, I get a lot of people asking about this. I know that for majority of people, the requisite of having a certain amount of money is just too high. I'm not sure what the actual benefits of it are, except for half a year, which you could do by taking a side trip to Korea and coming back. I don't know if it's legal to even say that. I guess people do it all the time. But when you do re-enter into Japan, you get a brand new 3-month visa for most nationalities. Some nationalities have 6 months anyways. I'm not sure what the benefits are, but I think that the government put this visa out and they're going to be adding benefits to it to try to get people to stay here. That's usually the way the things roll in Japan. They don't just give you a bunch of stuff and then see what works and then take it away. What they do is they just start it up and then they assess and then they add to it. It's always the reverse of the way they do it in other countries to avoid risk. So I'm guessing that the digital nomad visa, it doesn't look like it's such a worthwhile thing unless they're giving you like the ability to get a bank account in Japan, for example, or the ability to rent a house on 6-month contracts, for example, or to set up that kind of housing for people visiting from abroad. These are things that are in discussion now. So I'm not sure how it's all going to play out, but I think it's going to be initially, what is the demand for this kind of visa and how does what they have now work? And then they assess it and say, okay, let's revamp this and make it more attractive to people. How many people are seeing the benefits of this over other kinds of visas? When Japan is new to something, they don't use the foreign. This is even with I dare I say that the P word and the era that we just lived in. But when it came to the V word, I don't even want to say it because YouTube picks this stuff up. Japan had their own way. They didn't trust the foreign data and they wanted their own data. Like they wanted to do it their own way for the longest time, and then it just came. They had to use the Pfizer and the Moderna stuff, but in the end, but they fought it. They wanted to get their own data first, and that's the way that they do things in Japan. So the digital nomad visa is growing in so many countries abroad. They want their own way to initiate this to work, and that's going to throw some Westerners off because they're not used to this system, and that's always going to be. And if you are going to be a digital nomad in Japan, you better learn how Japan works a little bit because that's how Japan works. It's going to frustrate you and you don't feel it for a couple of months. But as I said, that honeymoon period of being a tourist and being a resident, it's apples and oranges. It's so different.
I could definitely vouch for that. I lived in Nagoya for half a year, and yeah, there's that 6 month hump, and 3 month hump, and then you get over that, and then you realize, yeah, Japanese society is a lot different than what you thought it was.
There's a 10-year hump. It's like you feel that after the 10 years, if you're still here, you're probably going to be here for a very long time. But yeah, the first 10 years that I was here, I knew a lot, but you don't really, there's something about that 10th year that maybe some people get it around the 7th year or the 14th year. But after around the 10-year mark, there's this sort of enlightenment that you come where you're just used to the systems and you know how it works, and now you can kind of use that to your benefit, and you don't get frustrated because you know the way the system is. You don't try to change the country to become like your country. I have friends that were here for like 10, 20, 15 years that never hit that enlightenment where you are never going to make the system in Japan the same as in the West. And anyways, that's the system that you understand. Is that system any better? The answer is no. I mean, the way the Japan system does it maybe not make sense to you, but it makes sense to the people in Japan. And at the 10-year mark, I really understood that because now I'm living in this country. It all sort of works together. The way that they do the recycling, the way that they do, things in their life, this aspect of it sort of works together with everything else. But unless you understand the entirety, which takes sometimes 10 years, you have trouble finding in how those pieces fit. Sorry for talking so much there, Chan. Anything else from the back of the car over there?
No, I mean, I'll look forward to you popping out of the back of the car one day with a crowbar, but we'll cross the bridge when we get there, I guess.
How you doing with food?
On a giddy. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for calling.
Right. Cheers.
You got
it. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a few remarks as well in the chat. Jason or Ganning221 in particular recommended Capital One Quicksilver for Americans and the Saver One, which are both MasterCards and don't carry any foreign transaction fees. So in Japan, you don't need to get the get 3% extra, pay 3% extra when paying in yen.
A lot of people were also recommending, I think, what was it, the Goldman Sachs or the Chase Manhattan? There was a certain card that was very beneficial for travelers.
It definitely differs by country as well.
Sure.
Like, for example, in Australia in particular, there's what's called the 28 Degrees MasterCard, which doesn't have any transaction fees as well, which is helpful if you want to make any purchases.
To me, I talked about this a little earlier, but back in the day when I was a backpacker from 1996 to 2003, and I was always looking for hacks, ways to get around these kinds of charges. I didn't want to, and there were so many less options. We didn't have digital payments. Email was brand new back then. I had a Hotmail account. I exchanged money. I came up with this idea. I saved up a lot of money, like $3,000, and I would write a check for $3,000 to my credit card, and they would add it as a surplus. And then I would just withdraw that money from the credit card company without any kind of fees because it was money owed to me. Like there was no, cash, like a loan, right? If you take money out on your credit card, it's almost like a loan. You start incurring fees right away. But if they owed me the money, they couldn't do that. So I was taking money out of the walls in Bolivia, in where was it? In South Africa, in India, at the Citibanks there, in Bangkok, in Sydney. I went all over the world taking money out of the wall with no transaction fees at a very good rate. Thank you to my credit card. But I don't think you can do that anymore. They caught on to it and they send you the money back, or they just don't allow you to do that anymore. But
I think my bank still allows that. They advise me that I can totally do something like that. Though I don't get the credit card points because it's a cash advance.
Right.
But speaking of hacks to get around fees, here's another question of mine, because I just came back from Japan and I went as far rural as like Takaoka and Tonami in the Hokuriku region, and for the life of me I can no longer find a single ATM that doesn't charge like that 220 yen fee to withdraw 10,000 or 440 above that. Do you know of any particular brands or ATM areas, at least maybe in Tokyo, that have fee-free ATMs for foreign cards?
Wow. I don't have a foreign card that I use that much. Offhand, I don't know. I just know that the best ATMs to take money from, the only option for foreign cards back in the day was Citibank, all right? And I think that they were only in the big cities. There was one in Nagoya or at the airports. So if I ever had to take money out, I had to go to the airport or I had to take the Shinkansen. One time I had to take the Shinkansen into Tokyo to get out cash and come back to pay for something, a service that I had to pay with cash because I wasn't getting paid for my eikaiwa job right away. By the way, in Japan, you don't get paid every week, you get paid every month. So if you're coming with very little money and you need to get a paycheck in order to survive, you're gonna end up going like 3 weeks to a month or sometimes 2 months because the check comes the next month. You're gonna be stuck. And I was stuck for a while and I had to go all the way into Tokyo to an ATM, one of like 2 in Tokyo at the time in order to get cash out. And I had to spend the night, now I remember now, I had to spend the night at a capsule hotel because I had to wait for it to reset to be able to take enough out from those, because you can only take, I think it was $300 at the time. It was kind of a hassle. Nowadays, I would say the 7-Eleven is probably the best option with the post office second. Both those, I think they take a very minimal fee. I think it's like 100 yen, but I don't know of any that are feeless. Unless
I tried both. 7 Bank in Takaoka was 220 yen for 10,440 for more than that. Japan Post is the same thing in Nagoya, in Osaka, in Nara as well. Yeah, they're all the same.
And they're very small amounts of money. If you consider, I would take out as much as you need. For example, if you might as well take out 100,000 yen, for example. At least 50,000 yen. Don't just take out 2,000 yen or 4,000 yen. Then those fees start to add up. Just take out a little bit more than you need, and you can always exchange it back. Look, the only time the exchange booths were really convenient for me or useful is when I returned money. Like when I was at the airport, the last thing you wanted to do is to have a bunch of 10,000 yen notes, unless you got it at 155 yen to the dollar. Then those 10,000 yen notes are probably pretty valuable later on when you come back. I don't think the yen's going to be as weak as it is right now to the dollar, so it might be good to holding on to some of that Japanese currency, taking it out at a favorable rate. But I often would use those return booths at the airport to return the money to get cash back. Or if I was going backpacking to another country, I'd exchange the yen into like Vietnamese or Korean won or something like this. And of course you're going to take a hit, but it's better than to have pockets of currency that you're not going to be using for maybe ever. Change it into something that's useful, because money is money. So those are the biggest benefits of having those exchange booths, but never to take money out because the ATMs are so convenient. But ATMs for foreign exchanges, they're one way. You can take money out, you can't give the money back. So something to keep in mind. Do we have any other questions from the community here?
Yes, we do. From Darren Toki, just going back on what you said in the beginning about PayPay, they asked, are e-wallets widely used in Japan? As you mentioned PayPay, would you think that Japan is opening up to the concept of e-wallets?
I think that they are, but right now it seems like it feels still kind of new. E-wallets are things like on your smartphone, right?
Yeah.
So
the QR codes or the Apple Pays.
Yeah, as I said, PayPay is the biggest one, and I don't use it, but my wife does, and I would say a lot of Japanese are very much in on this PayPay. There's a couple of other ones, but PayPay has done this really amazing thing of promoting themselves and getting people in there, giving people cash in order to get them into the system and used to paying for it. Food trucks have been using PayPay for quite a long time. They don't take credit cards, but they will use that QR code to scan it. So I think it's maybe not the same as, it's not quite at the same usage as the West, but I bet you it's going to become the predominant way that people pay in the next year. I think it's moving really fast. After that era that we were in, nobody really wanted to handle cash anyways, and it speeds things up to have the digital money anyways. You can use your Suica or your Passmo card or your Ikoka card, which is now more widely available, by the way. I don't think that's an issue now with the chip issues that we had in 2023. You can use that to pay for just about everything in Japan as well. So if you don't want to go into the PayPay thing and go application thing, you can just put 20,000 yen, and I think you can do it right off of your phone now. Charge it from your credit card right onto your mobile phone, which has the technology to just touch at a convenience store. So you can add things from your credit card. That might be the way to do like everyday purchases. You can buy stuff at supermarkets with an IC card. So it's becoming really convenient to have that as part of your repertoire. And for taxis, I always use my IC card. That's not true. I use my credit card sometimes because I need a business receipt, but it's so convenient to get into a taxi and they say, okay, 1,500 yen. Beep, out the door. It's so fast. If you use a credit card, you have to wait for them to signal the credit card data to the mainframe and get it back and approved and a receipt. Sometimes you have to push in a PIN code. IC card, touch, you're out. So the convenience of this is not lost on the Japanese people, and I'm seeing adaptation rates that are really high. But I think PayPay is the winner right now. So that's the big one in Japan. Just pay
I'd love
and
to
pay.
see like the foreigners being able to use it though, because I think
Yeah.
it's basically limited to collaborations with international partners. Because I know Chinese people can actually use PayPay because they inked a partnership with Zhifubao or Alipay. So Alipay users from mainland China can actually use their QR codes
Yeah.
with PayPay, and likewise. Another question from I guess let's continue on the topic on e-wallets, because Hazmat just asked on PayPay, Alipay, etc. They tried to register for a couple while in Japan, but wasn't able to download apps or sign up with their U.S. Android device. They do have a Japanese phone, a Docomo phone, that will be able to access the Japanese app stores. Can they sign up with that, or do you need Japanese financial personal details to create and link an account?
I think there's some. What we're saying with these collaborations with other foreign banks and other foreign agencies, I think that's the route that Japan's going right now. This is stuff that's changing really quickly. So again, like a lot of this is probably going to be outdated by the time you watch this. If you're watching it in June of 2024, this information is probably going to be outdated. But I see adaptations. Look, somebody just moved here to Japan recently. Asked me which bank I should get as a foreign resident, and Sony Bank is one of the banks that just made it easy. Everything is online. You don't even need to go into the bank to do it. You can take pictures of your residence card, and all of a sudden, within a couple of minutes, you have a bank account in Japan. And Sony Bank, Sony being a digital brand, it's quite convenient. They're really targeting foreign residents because Japan's population is decreasing, so it makes a lot of sense. But I'm seeing it. The process for all of this is getting easier and easier every month, it seems like, and like things that didn't exist a couple of months ago now do, and it's mind-blowing. Like Apple Pay and Google Pay weren't really accepted anywhere, and now I'm seeing the Apple Pay logo on a lot of convenience stores now. I'm like, what? That's kind of cool. Like they have a menu when you go into the convenience store where you can tap credit card, cash, Apple Pay. I'm like, what? So now you can do that and then pick your e-wallet and whatnot. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it looks like Hazmat's
content.
Hazmat typed it in chat, so he's got it. But like, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that even as things get easier, things get even more complicated on the other side. For example, you mentioned IC cards, you've mentioned PayPay, but you've also it's worth also pointing out the local governments implementing their own electronic money schemes. For example, the Hida region implementing something called Sarubobo coin, which is like a prepaid currency. If you load it there, you can get cash back. Whereas if your Toyama prefecture has Toyamane, which also acts as an incentive for people to come to the prefecture so they give free money through that app, through that digital currency. So it gets really messy eventually when you have all these different providers and you just don't know, okay, what can I use where?
Yeah, I would be skeptical of some of that. I had a local area contact me and ask me about this for consulting, and I didn't take the job because I'm kind of skeptical about it. I understand the reason why. That probably works more for domestic, but if you're international and you're just going to be here for a little bit, I don't see any advantage to doing it unless you become a resident. You get the local coupons, right? And I think there's also, in Japan you pay national tax and then you pay a local tax, and the local tax is usually quite high. But there are things in Japan that you can do to lower the tax rates. One of them could be maybe going into the local currency, and the reason why is they want you to spend your tax dollars, they want you to spend your money in the local regions. They want to make sure that you keep it local to help the businesses around this area. So that's why I think it's more of a domestic thing when you see this, and not so much for the tourists, but there are some benefits to it. I would say stay clear of that unless you're living in that area. I was in Tosa Shimizu in Kochi, which is kind of a faraway place, and they were talking about this as well. But I can't see the benefits to any foreign tourists visiting to go into local currencies. Keep it simple, right? You're either on vacation or you're traveling, and I'm going to do a live stream on this. Traveling is different than vacation. When you're on vacation, you just want to relax and you're going to a resort. This is when you would go to these places to, not do anything. Traveling is like a job. When I was backpacking, it was work, all right? I had to research places. I had to learn about how the culture worked, how to count from 1 to 100 or 1,000, which was made dealing with money a lot easier. I wanted to absorb the culture and the people around me. And in order to do that, it's more like a job when you're traveling abroad. Travel and vacation are two different things. So when you ask me questions about it, that's why they ask you, is this leisure or business or is it travel? Travel's different. Backpacking it's hard work. It's hard work to try to save money too. So watching this, I know that you're probably very concerned about it. If you can save $100 or $200, that's kind of a big deal because that also is savings that you can put towards the next trip or towards something else. We're all trying to save money. In particular, we can't even see the future sometimes with all of these new taxes, carbon taxes, all this stuff going on. I was looking at the Canadian politics and, it looks like the budget for next year looks ridiculously, crazy in taxes and stuff like this. So we don't know what's going to happen. We all want to save some money whenever we can. So some of these things are no-brainers. But when it comes to those local currencies, I can't see how it would be an advantage for the time that you put in. Because besides just saving $200, you also think about the time of your life. Because you don't have an infinite amount of time to spend in a bank for 30 minutes to exchange money when you could do it for 5 minutes and you spend an extra $2, for example. I would rather pick that 5 minutes, $2, or sorry, 5 seconds and pay $2 more than 30 minutes in a bank and pay and save a little bit of money. It's just not worth it. So you have to do the economics in your head. What is your time worth? And this is maybe more important than the nickel and diming, which is important to do because all that adds up. But is paying a little bit more and saving a lot more time worth it? And sometimes the answer to that is yes, because your time in Japan is limited to 2 weeks or 2 months or a couple of days. Something to think about as well as you plan your trip. I'm looking at the live chat here. Go ahead, Peso.
Oh yeah, we have Hazmat as well on stage.
Okay, Hazmat, welcome.
Hazmat, can you hear us?
Uncomfortable silence. Uncomfortable silence.
While we, I guess, wait for that, I'll get onto like another basic question from Saya M in the Discord chat as well.
Okay.
She asks, ATMs in Japan still close at night?
Some do. Convenience stores don't. And I showed you the video of the 7-Eleven one, the screenshots. It seems like they closed for like 5 minutes or something like this to reset the system, certain cards. So that was interesting. But ATMs at banks like Mitsubishi UFJ or Mizuho Ginko, they'll close at like 9 p.m. So your options are more limited at night. But if you go to a convenience store, and the post office, I believe, closes at night too. But the convenience stores are open all the time because there's a clerk there to make sure that everything's running okay. The reason why is they don't have staff working at 9 p.m. and there's nobody to help you. Should you have an issue after 9 p.m., there would be nobody to come and help you out with that, so they close it, and this reduces risk. This is what I was told. Anyways, there could be other reasons why. Thanks for asking that question. That was in the fireside text.
Another reminder to those in the audience, feel free to join the Discord server and go to the fireside channel, the call-in channel, in order to join and cast your questions directly. I'm waiting for Shirley Peck to come onto stage, but she did ask her question on chat as well, asking thoughts on getting exchange at the post office. I'm guessing it's cash exchange.
A cash exchange, I think it's going to take you a little bit of time like it does with the bank. I remember I used to send foreign remittances when I would get my paycheck. I had a massive credit card debt because before I started only in Japan, I was doing podcasting on Apple and video, and I'd have to pay the bandwidth to a U.S. company, and I would have to send the cash in every month after I got my paycheck. So I would send these remittances, and it would take me up to 45 minutes at the post office to send it. I don't think it's a good idea to change money at any window at an institution. That means a bank or a post office, unless it's one of these express windows that does just that. When you go to a Japanese bank or a post office, you need what's called like a hanko or a stamp or confirmation from several people. And they do it just to reduce risk, to make sure that there was no error in the paperwork. And it's at the cost of your time. They try to make it as speedily as possible, by the way. But people go to lunch as well. So if you're going there from like 11:30 to 1, sometimes it's really, you gotta wait. And waiting is like is like part of Japanese culture. So I would be against that unless, again, you have the time to do it and you really want to do it. But sending foreign remittances and whatnot, in my experience, it took quite a bit of time. So time is money. I'm a little bit against it if you're going to save a couple of dollars, unless your time is more disposable than the money, which is crazy.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hazmat.
Mic check.
Yeah. All
Gotcha.
There we go. Okay, I hate to drag us back into the PayPay questions and the nickel and diming, but do we know if there are any fees to transfer money in and out of balances like PayPay or Alipay? And would that be better or worse than the ATM fees or credit card fees?
Oh, it'd be better. It'd be better. I don't think that there's any. I can't think of there being any fees. I think the fees come from the operators who accept the money, not from the consumers that use it. Again, I haven't used PayPay before, but but Kanai has, and she never talked to me about that. So I'm guessing that it's always the fee is taken on the vendor side. But for the vendors, a lot of them will accept PayPay because they don't take as much as the credit cards. The credit cards are. This podcast has been brought to you by MasterCard and Visa. And I don't want to say this, but some of the rates that they charge vendors are like criminal. It's really bad. They don't want to transfer, and they feel guilty, a lot of them, to transfer 5%, make the food 5% more expensive to pay off the 5% that they charge you for this. I think vendors can eat 1.5% or something small like that, but 5% over so many transactions that adds up to be quite a lot of money for them. So I think PayPay has become a really popular payment option in Japan because it takes less from the vendors and they can keep prices low, which brings more customers in. If you charge like 980 yen for a bento, or if you charge 1,100 yen for a bento, the amount of people that are going to leave you because you charge too much to pay off the credit card is there. Like they lose money, not just by charging more. You think they would make more money. It doesn't work like that. Less people line up for that food that they have. So they don't want to pass that cost on to people at all. And I've talked to a lot of food truck operators about this too. But I haven't specifically asked about that rate though. But I can't think of PayPay taking any money out for adding into it. I don't remember. I know they just give you bonuses and they are incentivizing it. But this is the way a lot of these operators work. Amazon was sort of the same way. They get you set up and where you rely on the system. They rely on it and rely on it and rely on it. And then 14 years later, they start to make a profit. And then they start making things a little bit more expensive for you. They start raising the prices because you're so invested in the system now and you know it so well, you don't want to leave. Then they can start to make their money back. So I think PayPay might be something like that, where they might be taking a loss right now, and then they're going to be taking a victory lap in a couple of years when the vast majority of the population, including the government, is so invested in this service. I don't know. That's just sort of the way that the world seems to work these days, in my experience.
Small businesses in the future will be less cash dependent and more e-payment dependent. I was surprised actually to see, I was trying to complete a cash payment, ran out of cash, and I was looking at alternatives in country, long story. But Kuroneko for luggage forwarding services was accepting e-payments. So that's what led me to try to sign up with my Android device, and I couldn't. But we figured it out.
I'm hoping that I think there was something in the news recently. They really want to get foreign visitors to sign up into this. And I think the reason why PayPay is so important to Japan is because a lot of these operators, Apple Pay, Google Pay, they're all international. All this money is not staying in Japan. They're getting siphoned off. Visa, MasterCard, American Express is going to America. Like, these are going somewhere else. So Japan wanted to have a domestic, Japan-born company that gives Japanese jobs. Now, American Express, of course, has a Japanese company, but they wanted a domestic company that did this kind of thing, and PayPay has been that thing for Japan. And I'm pretty sure that you know, as this grows and gets more resources, it might go international as well and have value outside of Japan. But it's the big one in Japan, and I can understand why they'd want to do it to compete against, you know, Apple Pay, where everything's going to Apple, and they certainly don't need the money.
All right. Well, thanks. I think we'll look for more e-payment next trip.
Thank you. And it's going to be a different world, a different situation in a year from now, I believe. It's going to be interesting. More options growing from this.
Indeed.
I think that's about it. We've been going on this for an hour. If you have any more to add to it, you can leave a comment below. I'm going to be doing a meetup tomorrow. If you are in Tokyo, a lot of people wanted to meet up during the cherry blossoms, but the season was too short this year. It was pretty crazy. But I'll be in Asakusa at around 8:30 at that pancake place, because I'm going to be...
Pancake place.
I forget what it's called. It's the one with the Japanese pancakes in Asakusa. I think that should be more than enough. But I'll put a link in the description if you wanted to come and say hi, and reserve with me, because I'll be filming in there. And my hope is that we can get like enough people in there that are comfortable with maybe being in a main channel episode, where then you know, it's a lot more comfortable for me to film in there. I talked with the manager of the pancake place, Makita-san, and he said that he has no problems with me filming, but he won't give me a permit per se to film them. He said, just come on in, you don't need a permit. But you know, if I want to try to avoid, you know, filming people that don't know who I am, so it's nice if we can get our community there. So I'm calling all cars, and if anybody's in the area, I'll be in Asakusa at 8:30 tomorrow. Again, you have to make a reservation.
8:30 a.m. or p.m.?
A.m. So you have to make a reservation at 8:30, and then you don't eat until 10 a.m. when it opens. So I'll be walking around Asakusa for like an hour and a half, and maybe doing a live stream tomorrow morning in Asakusa, so you get a chance to join an Only in Japan Go live stream, as well as be in a main channel episode, and see if you liked your souffle pancakes. But Brandy will be there as well, and it should be a fun time. But they start taking reservations at 8:30, so I'll be there around 8:15. I forget what it's called, but it's an extremely famous place that if you just search Asakusa pancakes, it probably comes up top, and then you'll see that they take reservations at starting at 8:30. So I'll be there filming tomorrow, unless the weather, I think even if the weather's bad, I'll be out there, because it's pretty sunny out there right now. And then we'll do a live stream around Asakusa, and I'll show you some interesting stuff around there for an hour and a half before we get our pancakes, work up an appetite. So that's out there now. For Discord servers, what other news do I have? If you're on a Patreon supporter, I'm going to post that phone number one more time, and I'll try to finish up the phone message peso so we can get that. We have a Texas phone number that you can call and leave messages. It's kind of gone a little quiet, so I'm going to introduce this to the general public next week. But I want to see if we can get some more people on our Patreon backers to call in and help us beta test this. I won't tell you the phone number now.
Message from a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I did.
I did. Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm on it now, and I have to record it with a nice clear mic, but it gives you some prompts if you call in the number to leave a message. If you push the pound key...
Somebody voicemailed. Somebody sent a voicemail a few weeks ago.
Oh.
I'm sure if you
Oh, did they?
I heard that. Yeah, they did.
Let's see here. I have it in the Discord server. The
Okay,
voicemail.
good.
Yeah.
Just play it out then.
Hi, John. Wayne here in California. Thank you for all your great videos. Been enjoying those for about 5 years now. We're making our first ever trip to Japan next month, doing the Golden Route. And we know it's going to be busy, but we're wondering if it might be a little less busy just because the cherry blossoms might be fading away. Either way, it is what it is. Can't wait to go.
That's a voicemail, so you'll be able to leave a message that we can hear and play back anytime like that. That's really cool. Thank you for the question, and the answer is not really. Not really. There's a very small micro window, like between April 10th to Golden Week maybe. But the problem is this: cherry blossom season in Tokyo's finished, but it's not finished up in Tohoku. It's just getting started. I think next week Hirosaki is about to start, or on the 24th of April. And then, you know, Golden Week starts while the cherry blossoms are going up in Hirosaki. Then they go up to Hakodate and Sapporo during Golden Week. They're in Sapporo and Nemuro as well. So Hokkaido starts to bloom. So the cherry blossoms are not done. So that means tourists are still here. but it is in it's still considered high season in April just because of that. In particular, domestic travel. Japanese don't travel for cherry blossoms as much as they do for autumn colors. Cherry blossoms for domestic tourism is people want to stay local and celebrate the trees that they have in their neighborhood. This is a generalization, but it's the Shinkansens and the hotels are not booked up as much for that. In the fall, the season is longer, the weather is cooler. People want to get into the mountains to see the autumn foliage, and sit in the onsen. So onsen is more beautiful with the autumn foliage because there's more of it than there are of the cherry blossoms trees. So autumn is more packed with domestic tourists, and travel is going to be more expensive, in particular around the middle of November. This is when the autumn colors start to change in the cities. In Kyoto, around November 18th. It's going to be different every year, but I would say around this time, November 18th, prices go up, availability goes down, and it's stressful because places are crowded with domestic and foreign tourism trying to see those autumn colors. So keep that in mind. If you thought cherry blossoms are crazy, autumn might even be more crazy because of the domestic travel. And now with the dollar so strong, Japanese aren't traveling abroad, so the autumn seasons are getting a little bit more stressful. It's just something to keep in mind. I appreciate the question. Hope that answers it. And yeah, our Patreon supporters can call in at any time and leave a message. I thought that was pretty clear too, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a pretty clear message. All right, guys, and that was like right off of the smartphone, right? So you're calling in with that mic. All right, yep. That's all I got for you. Thank you, Peso, for your time here, and to our moderators who are helping out in there, Ramsey Silent and Hello Hi 21 and UFO Bob and JKO Adventures and who am I forgetting? And Joy down there in the Philippines.
JKO.
Yeah. We got a bunch of really great moderators, and I appreciate it very much. And Michael Sassano is here as well. Thank you, Michael. I guess I'll pick up your gift from Brandy in a little bit. The sun just went behind a cloud here. I'm gonna go outside, get some sun, and eat some lunch. But I appreciate you guys spending some time with me and talking about how to get money out and saving a little bit of cash so that you can live maybe a little bit better here in Japan, despite the fact that the exchange rates are positive. Saving 20, 30 bucks here and there, it's a big deal. It all adds up. It really does. Thank you, and mata ne. See you again soon, everybody.
Mata ne.